you very much, and if you don't mind, Madam Minister, I'd like to go back and forth.
Sure.
I just want to ask about another agency under your department, the AUC. Is the chair of the AUC currently the permanent chair, or is there a process underway to find a new permanent chair?
Yeah, we have a temporary. The current chair, the chair that we had, has retired,
Okay.
and so we have one in place, and we're currently recruiting, or well, interviewing for that.
And when did that retirement take place?
Yeah, I think it was January, and then there was a bit of an extension, and yeah, so we've appointed an interim while we recruit.
Okay, and so given that it's a retirement, though, there was, I assume, some line of sight ahead of time. When did you start the recruitment process for the chair of the AUC?
I can't remember exactly, but it's been some time.
Okay, so it was before the retirement took place. It would have been in 2017.
Yeah, it was in
sometime.
the fall.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was in the fall. So now it's now April of 2018. So if we were to say fall of 2017 to spring of 2018, that's roughly 6 months' time.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm mistaken. The current chair is still with us till May 1st because there is an extension.
Right, so the retirement was announced,
for so much, yeah.
Stayed around until May 1st.
So, and that'll
okay.
allow us the time to recruit.
Okay, and you expect to have a chair in place
Yeah.
in time for May 1st, the permanent chair?
I believe, if it gets through cabinet in time and that.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to a different question within the same broad area of electricity, the REP process. There's been one round of renewable contracts let. I understand there's the next 2 phases have been announced. Is that right? So we've got 1 through 3, and my question is around transmission cost. I understand in the past that you have said that there will be no incremental transmission costs as a result of the REP process. Is that correct? I didn't do my timer. How much time have I got?
So when we've been doing this, as I think I've mentioned in the House before, we're blessed with a fairly robust system, and so when the ISO is considering these, they look at location 2 existing transmissions, so there won't be any new transmission built based on these reps.
Okay, and so that just to be 100% clear, what I'm hearing is that we will not, the province of Alberta will not require substantial new transmission for any of the renewable energy projects.
I'll let David speak maybe too.
So under the existing transmission system, the ISO in the round 1, 2, and 3 has clearly stipulated that transmission would be considered in evaluating the projects themselves. The ISO does have already underway in their long-term outlook and their long-term plan transmission projects that, by the natural evolution of needs within the province, would grow transmission resources in certain regions of the province, the central east, the south. They're also looking at some projects, I think, in the north central part of the province. Those transmission systems, when they come online, would support not just generation, but they would support load development in those areas or demand. And so they're not being built for the renewable electricity program. However, when they're in place, they would facilitate more renewable resources, generating resources on those transmission lines.
Okay, and so when doing the next couple of rounds of the REP process, are you considering geographic diversity as part of the criteria as to where we're going to potentially put these, in particular wind projects, so they're not all in one part of the province?
Yeah.
That's part of the that is part of
one of the criteria.
That is one of the criteria. That's great to know. Have you done any cost analysis on the contracts themselves? Obviously, was very encouraged by the 3.7 cents kilowatt hour. That's a pretty remarkable price, and I think we would all agree. And I think that adding renewables to Alberta's grid, from an Alberta Party perspective, is certainly a very positive thing. what does your analysis show in terms of what you feel that cost is likely to be? I mean, one of the challenges with wind, of course, is that when the wind blows, the price attracted tends to go down pretty significantly. You can't choose when to dispatch it. The wind blows when it blows, and that tends to cause the price to go down. So even if the overall average may be more than that 3.7, the actual price realized by the wind projects often, generally, usually, is quite a bit lower, or is likely to be lower. I like the model that you've adopted. It makes sense. But I'm just curious whether you feel like that's something that we're likely to see wind producers attracting a lot of those higher prices, or generally speaking, they're going to be in the lower price band. And if so, what costs are we looking at going forward through the life of those reps?
They'll be in the lower price band, but we could in fact see situations where.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll speak, and then if David wants to add in some more, but, you know, they'll be in the lower price band, but it is possible that they could be in a paying position down the road. And the bid price we received in round one, as you said, set record lows, and with the cost of developing renewables continuing to drop, and given industry interests, we're excited about the prices, obviously, for the next all of the rep rounds. And as with round one, ISO will run a competitive bidding process for the next rounds, and you know, by using this competitive process, you know, we do and maintaining the need to use existing lines, we expect to have very good prices. But at the end of the day, we may be even in a receiving position down the road, the way the contracts for differences are applied. Okay. And the ISO does a lot of modeling on things as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to your business plan, and apologies. I'll try not to jump around too much. Try to keep things similar thematically. Time is wearing on here. We've now just entered hour 5, so we'll have to bounce around a bit. And thank you very much again to you and your very capable staff here for your patience and for your answers and your work. Business plan, page 60, second paragraph, I guess maybe third paragraph is a short one at the top there. It says the Climate Leadership Plan has demonstrated Alberta's commitment to being a sustainable energy producer and has helped to improve global perception of Alberta's oil and gas resources. I hope that's true. How do we know that? Does your department do polling? Do you do surveys? How do we quantify the help to improve the global perception of Alberta's oil and gas resources?
Well, I can say, you know, once we announced our plan, I had industry companies coming and telling me that the conversation, for example, around pipelines and just marketing in general in Alberta started to change. And I can tell you, when I've gone to, just between 2 years ago going to Houston to the CIRA conference and this year, climate leadership, carbon and all that wasn't much of a focus 2 years ago. I would say this year it was about 80% of the focus was, and this is global, there's over 70 countries, for more than 4,000 participants, and many of the discussions were that. And I think one of the things that's not understood is even in the U.S., there's a number of states who are considering or are pricing carbon, and so we know we're in the global stage. And just looking anecdotally in the last couple of years, the interest in Alberta, we're seen as being climate leaders as well as resource leaders, and so I don't know from your perspective, is there any, but I just anecdotally, I know, I absolutely know we're in the right space.
So I think those anecdotal reports are somewhat helpful, but I would love to see some performance measures, because much as I trust that to be true, I'd like to be able to quantifiably verify that's actually the case, so we know. And I guess the other question I would have is are there tangible benefits of this? Have we been able to access any new markets because of this improved global perception that you talk about? Without question, that hasn't worked in the Lower Mainland. Clearly, I'm afraid the folks chaining themselves to the fence at Kinder Morgan don't seem to believe that Alberta is taking appropriate action in terms of climate change or frankly much else. So I guess I'm just curious how we square all of this, how we can actually realize that, and that's the question I'll ask next time when I get a chance.
I'll be ready.